everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com, and welcome to the daily stocks outlook for our favorite markets. This is going on for tomorrow, and really some of these even for the rest of the week, tomorrow being the 23rd of the month. Now, overall, the big ones that we're going to be looking at are going to be Apple, symbol AAPL, Amazon, symbol AMZN, and Tesla, symbol TSLA, and along with that, we're going to cover a couple of the extras inside of there that are potential setups and opportunities as well. So first on the list, we have Apple. Now, Apple really, for the most part, hasn't been doing a whole lot. We've got a lot of chop and slop and a lot of back and forth up here, but they're not really accomplishing much. And even with the index rally going on today, other than a really just kind of shallow bull day, there's not really much going on here. So a couple big levels that we have of interest when it comes to Apple are, because there's not really much above us, are potential pullback areas. We want to buy when the market is cheap. Give us an area to buy into so we can look for some areas of pretty good interest, maybe some levels of support, some structure in the market, just something that we can sink our teeth into on Apple. Because right now, we're just stuck right in the middle of things, and it doesn't look that great up here. In all honesty. So really what I'm looking for is a buy dip down below that previous structure that we had forming right around the moving average support coming in. It's the same place that we found swing high that paused this monster rally to the upside back in March and April. And now that we're starting to kind of dig down into this area and holding that as support, this becomes sort of a kill zone between 142.26 down to 135.44. I would love to see a dip down into that area for a potential trap underneath this previous low, kind of dig back into earlier congestion, and then get a nice bounce to the upside. For right now, we're really just kind of stuck in a range. So out of the options that we have available to us, which aren't really a whole lot, we're kind of dealing with a short-term range environment that isn't giving us a ton to work with, so we need to buy low, sell high, stay out of the middle. And because this is such a strong bullish market, more so looking to buy low. Now, in the just congestion, I think, for lack of better words, that we're kind of stuck in right now, the low looks really, really solid right there, and the highs look pretty good. I mean, honestly, right across there. So that puts us with an area of resistance up at 161.61 and a level of support just at the low close there at 155.32. We're right in the middle of that. So because of that area, what I would really like to see is a dip below previous days, in this case today, but tomorrow, previous day's low, which would be at 158.03, and see if they can fill the gap down there at 157.20s or so. If we can get a dip down into this, this is going to be the buy zone going into tomorrow to look for a bounce back out of there to continue that bullish rally to the upside, if they give us that kind of pullback. If it wants to pull back a little bit further, 155.32 on the range lows would be the next area of interest, of course, but it all depends on what the markets really want to do here. So that's kind of the buy zone that we're looking for on Apple. Now, over on Amazon, Amazon is in a very similar situation as Apple, but the nice thing about Amazon comparative to Apple, if we zoom out on Apple here, we can see we've already bounced out of that area of congestion for a nice rally up. Amazon is sitting on top of it right now. Now, the one thing that does stand out on Amazon that makes me a little bit concerned here is simply the fact that we have such a strong, they gapped up and just completely collapsed right back down, and that monster failure lower makes me a little bit concerned that we have an overshot on the highs. We may end up with an overshot on the bottom. So although there is a potential for short-term buying, maybe building into a position, I don't think that this is the perfect place to be jumping on in for that opportunity on the rip to the upside. Instead, what I would rather look for is potential small side trading, just kind of building a small shallow position and then waiting for that blow off through the bottom. That low 924.96 is a beautiful area for that kind of equalization of the blow off at the top. They overshoot the highs. Eventually, when they grind their way down, we should see an equidistant break down of that same amount, and that gives us a support level at 924.96, looking for the market to roll back over and push back up towards those highs. The major objective on this, in all honesty, are a couple things. First of all, we have the gap close, which was on that giant bear rejection. That's back above the thousands again, not to mention the big 1,000 round number in there, but 1,046.01. And then if we can go back up to the open there are likely a lot of buyers that when this market gapped up and opened way above wedge top resistance, they likely bought in pretty aggressively thinking this is finally the breakout that we've been waiting for on Amazon. and it just fell flat on their face. So there's probably a lot of buyers that are still stuck in at that 1,069.61 area, just hoping that the market comes back to get them out. So this is a short-term buying area right now for an opportunity to the upside, as well as an opportunity to buy a little bit further down at 924.96 for a bounce to get those earlier buyers that were buying the highs, unfortunately for them, to get them out at break even, and where we can potentially look for some profit targets. Over on Tesla, Tesla catching a nice little wedge formation here. In the grand scheme of things, really, we could try to draw this up as a channel. It kind of fits there. We could go a little bit further out, and it kind of fits there, but none of those channels really fit that well. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on this bottom as a potential wedge later on. We may grind into that in the next, 5-10 years. But for right now, the wedge is what we're dealing with at the moment. And the market is fairly stagnant up here. We're just cycling off of the highs of potential resistance and pushing down. And that opens up a potential really nice area for support bouncing. Not only do we have the overall wedge bottom, but we have kind of this cluster zone from closes and from extremes, giving us kind of a band of interest inside of here if we can get a dip lower. Now, don't be too aggressive on the buy side, because this is a pretty sturdy fall. We have a lot of bearish momentum to the downside. It's back-to-back days of selling pressure off of the highs, of course, a lower high. So there are some issues with being the first one to the party. Now, when we're looking at this kind of thing being first to the party, there are a few things that stand out. We have a negative divergence on this dip lower. There are a few things that may entice buyers to buy in at around moving average support in the middle there. But for the most part, again, you got to be careful being too early to the party, because it can cause a lot of trouble unless you're buying in small and building a position. I think it's better, safer at least, to wait. Now, what I would really like to see is a dip down to 295.18 or as low as 287.90, or really anything below that for a possible buying pressure to shove the market right back up again towards those highs, and maybe even finish off that job to 400 to see if they can finally get the test of that. Just a beautiful move on TSLA in this little bit of a wedge. We're just looking to buy the wedge lows here in the next couple days. In the short term, though, I mean, in all honesty, it's going to be really tough to want to do anything but sell. We have a very aggressive bearish turn. I think anything above yesterday's high is going to be an area of interest for potential selling, and that leaves a band of interest right here to drop the market back down for that secondary leg lower. Now, for me personally, I'm not a big fan of shorting stocks. I'm kind of a perma-bull when it comes to stocks, so I would rather wait to buy at the lows, but still, there is a potential area of interest for tomorrow's trading as well if they want to give you that little pop above the previous day. And now we're starting to dig into some of the extras here. BCLI in a little bit of a range, kind of these small to mid-cap stocks. Really just kind of a cheap one, something that could be a pretty good potential here, kind of cycling down into the area of support. We have a band of support at 387 to the lows at 356, and really anything below that is an area where buyers just seem to be eating it alive. Every time it dips down aggressively, especially, it immediately slams right back up. The buyers are defending heavily these lows, and every time it dips down there, especially around that $3.60 mark, we're catching a lot of buy support coming in for play. And, well, right now, given that we've tested that area again at 387, and the day is closing with a huge wick on the bottom, it looks like they're doing it again. So really what I'm looking for here is buying anywhere from 387 and below, and looking for it to cycle right back up to the range highs at 476 up to 518, and maybe even a little bit further on the highs. I'm not anticipating a big breakout though. The last couple times we've tried the highs, it's failed, so I'm not looking for huge movement. More so just kind of the lower edge, something like that at 476. Over on IBN, not to be confused with IBM, this is IBN, N is in Nancy, just to be specific. We do have a potential larger channel coming into play. Again, another one that has overblown through the highs, looking for an overshot through the bottom as well. Gives us an area of interest at around the $8 mark. Depends on when it comes down there. We do have a couple other things as well, looking from the highs to the lows. We have a measured move that has recently arguably completed. They may have a little bit more juice in the tank to go down, but we are beginning to find an area of accumulation down here around that 850 mark. Looks pretty good, and every time we've dipped down around that 850, 860 area, we've seen a lot of resistance, and once we've finally broken above it, now we're seeing them buying way ahead of it already. So a dip down to that 850 could be a beautiful area for a bounce right back up to the highs and potentially a retest of 10. And then finally, a BBV. Overall, good ascending wedge rising higher. We just cycled off of the highs. Gorgeous rejection at the top, likely a lot of profit taking. And now we are cycling off of a kill zone. A kill zone in the sense that we have a moving average coming into play with the bottom of the channel. Along with that, we have earlier structure just below that. So there's a lot of stuff that's showing that we could easily get a nice turn right back up towards the highs here if this wants to continue. Now, arguably, the train has already kind of left the station, right? We've got a pretty good 3-day rally on the way up. So really what I'm looking for is either buying aggressively on tomorrow's open and just push it higher. That's obviously the most aggressive way to get in. Or waiting for a little bit of a pullback. A little bit of a pullback would be a gap fill potentially, or even just a break below the previous low of day. Just something to get us a little further down at a potentially better price. We got to be careful of buying too aggressively. So that gives us a buy band between 70, 77, down to 70, 70. So an area of interest on a pullback if we can get one tomorrow. Otherwise, there are going to be aggressive buyers that see this rally up and just start slapping the market button looking for the upside. Overall, major objective at the highs, going to be up at 74.65 up to 75.03, and that will be the final objective for a lot of buyers who may be looking to buy into this, who already may have bought into this, looking for targets at the top. So that's going to do it for the stock outlook on all kinds of different markets, including our favorites. Hopefully you learned something, and as always, if you have any questions about them, you can always shoot me an email. But like we always say, make a plan, trade the plan, follow those rules. You'll be okay. Until next time, we'll see y'all then.